Hello, this is Angela Isherwood from I Run Success, and I want to show you my Saturday night stretch and roll routine. It's an interesting title, and I came up with this a few years ago. Basically, I was marathon training, and the way that I had to structure my week meant that I had quite a hard run on a Saturday, and then I had my long run on a Sunday. So because I had these two sessions back to back that were both quite challenging, I had to really be on top of the recovery. So I was on top of the nutrition, and we'll talk about that in another video log. But the main thing that I did that meant I was successful in those marathons was that every Saturday night after that tough tempo session, I would do this stretch and rolling routine. And then again, I'd do it on a Sunday after I'd done the long run. Now, I wouldn't do it immediately after the long run or immediately after the tempo session because personally, I really, really struggle with the cold. So this time of year, when I'm out running, my number one priority when I get inside is to warm up again. Now, I don't want running to affect my health negatively, so I don't want to be susceptible to hypothermia or getting any illnesses associated with cold. So the first thing I do is I get warm by getting, having a warm shower or bath, and then I get warm clothes on. And then once I've had something to eat, I will go through this stretching and rolling routine, or I'll leave it until the evening. And usually there'll be something on that TV. At the time I first started doing this, it was the David Attenborough Africa series. So I'd be watching that whilst I was getting on with my stretching and rolling. Before we get started, let me just show you a few pieces of equipment we're going to use as well. So just give me a second. I should have probably got them together before starting this. So the first one is a foam roller. This is a Trigger Point foam roller. Now, there are many, many other brands available, but I know that this one works really well and it's one of the best. It's also one of the more expensive ones, but I've had this since 2008, I believe, and it's still exactly the same as when I got it. Now, the main reason it's so good is it has this tube in the center that's really hard plastic. And so when you're putting your body weight through this, it doesn't deform and it doesn't depress. So if you don't want to get a Trigger Point one, at least get one that has this reinforced plastic tube in the middle so that your body weight won't deform the tube. And then the other thing is I've got a ball. This one actually came from the company Rock Tape, but it's a lacrosse ball. You can get something like this from a pet shop as well. So the balls that your dogs chase around, but it's quite a firm ball, but it's got a bit of give. It does bounce, but not very high. And that is useful for getting into knots. And I'll show you how to do that shortly. So what we're going to do first is go through a stretching routine. So I'm assuming you're a runner. So the first thing we're going to stretch is our calves, and then I'm going to come down to the floor to do some other stretches. So first off, the calf stretches. So I'm going to go against the wall for this. And what we do is hands against the wall. So you can see hands against the wall. I'm about 2 feet away from the wall. My back leg is straight, heel into the ground, and all the weight is in the back leg. The front leg can come off. I'm pushing the heel into the ground and pushing my arms against the wall and just holding that stretch there for about 30 seconds. Now, stretching is really good if you can breathe through it as well. So I'm just taking some breaths as I do my stretches. Okay, so now I've held it for about 30 seconds. I'm going to switch over to the other leg. So I just take my other foot back, step back in line and relax the one I was stretching formally. And then we'll hold this. Again, pushing into the wall, pushing the heel down into the ground for about 30 seconds with some deep breaths. So that's about halfway, that's about 15 seconds done. Okay, then we repeat those stretches. So now I'm going to go back to stretching the right leg in that gastrocnemius stretch, pushing into the wall. And you might have noticed I've gone a little bit further away from the wall because I'm deepening this stretch now. Still holding for about 30 seconds. And then switching over to the other side, again, deeper into this stretch. You may have noticed I've adjusted my hand position. That's just to relax my arms because I'm working quite hard pushing into the wall. So I'm just adjusting my hand position so that my arms don't get overly tired. Okay, great. So that was the main calf stretch, the gastrocnemius stretch, and that works the belly of the calf. So this big bulbous part at the top of the calf. Now the next stretch that we need to do is for the soleus, which runs right alongside, right underneath the gastrocnemius, and it connects in with the Achilles. So this is where your back leg will be bent. So if you watch me here, let me just adjust the camera angle first. So make sure that you're going to see everything on the floor. So if you watch me here, I'm still pushing my hands into the floor, same position, a little bit closer to the wall because the back leg is going to be bent, and this will focus in on the soleus. I'm still trying to push the heel down. This is harder to do with the knee bent, but you're getting that stretch in the deep calf muscle. This one, whilst you can hold it for up to 30 seconds, its efficacy goes away after about 15. So you don't necessarily need to hold it as long, but repeat it 2 to 3 times. So now I'm on to the other leg. Holding for about 15 seconds. Okay, then we go back to the first leg. Again, pushing into the wall, heel into the ground. Deep breaths. And then back to the second leg again. All right, great. Now we've done the calves, we're going to move along the back of the leg. So the next muscles we're going to focus in on are the hamstrings. I'm just going to need to bring the camera down so you can see me on the floor here. So let's see how this works if I just put this straight on the floor. Can you see me? Okay, so this one, we're going in for the hamstring stretch. Just going to raise it up a little bit. Sorry, this is this being filmed live, so I apologise with all the adjustments, but you're getting what I do on a Saturday night rather than a wonderful production in the video side of things. Okay, so this is the hamstring stretch. So the first thing is you're going to be sitting down on the floor, your upper body, your back is going to be straight, one leg is straight, the other one comes into the side. You're going to point your toes towards you, and then you're going to reach down towards the toes. Now, remember, we're here to stretch. So the aim of this is not to touch your toes, but to get a stretch in that muscle. So if you can touch your toes without arching your back, then fantastic. If you can lie your forehead to your shin to get the stretch, brilliant. Now this is as flexible as I get, so I'm about 2 inches away from touching my toes. But I'm going to hold this for about 30 seconds. I've probably done about 20 now, before switching onto the other leg. Gently come out of the stretch and reverse it. So other leg is straight, the other one, the one you just stretched, is bent. Holding onto that ankle to give you some leverage to reach forward, get that stretch in the hamstring, making sure that you're pointing your toes towards you to help that stretch in the back of that leg. Again, deep breaths will always help this. Okay. So you may have noticed I just lurched forward a bit. That's because after you've been stretching for a while, this phenomenon called the stretch reflex, which is there to protect our muscles and actually stops us from overstretching, the reflex switches off and it allows you to go that bit further. So this is why it's really important to hold your stretches for 30 seconds plus. That stretch reflex tends to go away after about 10 seconds. So when people sort of, this is why it's so important for me to get warm. There's no point in me rushing through stretches as soon as I get in the door when I'm freezing and all I want to do is get warm, because they're just pointless. So may as well get warm, get ready to do the stretches properly, and then do them effectively. So now we're back to the first leg, leaning forward, and you can see the range has increased because now I can touch that big toe just, okay? And this is what you want. We call them a developmental stretch. So you want the range of the stretch to increase as you're doing them. And this shows that your muscles are returning to their original length. And so you won't suffer from chronic tightness that runners often get because they don't take their stretching and their mobility seriously enough. Okay, so tapping that toe. All right, back to the second leg. I'm not going to bother trying to name them left or right because I'd have to remember the mirroring. So we're back to that second leg. And again, I'm touching that toe quite comfortably now, whilst feeling that stretch in the back of the leg. Now, there are many other ways to do hamstring stretch, but I'm doing it seated, and there's a very good reason for that. Now, after the exertion of running or whatever exercise you've been doing, an important part of the cool down is to bring your heart rate down. So when you're sitting down, your heart rate is naturally going to be lower. In addition, many ways of doing these stretches on one leg require a significant amount of balance. And I, for one, know that when I've done a long run, my balance isn't great. And so I'm wasting energy trying to stay balanced rather than focusing on the purpose of the exercise I'm doing at the time, which is the stretch. Okay, this next one is for the adductors. So these are quite small, thin muscles that run along the inside of the thigh. They connect up through the pelvis into the abdominals, and they help with stability. Chronically tight in a lot of runners. So what we do with this one, let me just move back so you can see the whole of me, is meet your feet together like you're clapping them, hold onto your ankles, pull your ankles towards you, and then get your elbows onto the top of your knees and try to push down while simultaneously pulling those ankles towards you. Now this one, be very gentle with stretching it. Don't force this one, okay? Because groin injuries are a nightmare and you can get them by overstretching. So just very gently hold into the stretch position for about 30 seconds. When you're stretching, at no point should you be shaking because of the stretch. If you are, that's a sign that you're pushing too hard and you need to just relax it, okay? So if you start shaking, start feeling that shake, that's a sign your muscle's at the end of its range of motion and it's not happy. And the worst thing that could happen is it could tear, and that could leave you out of running for months. Okay, so relax that one up again. Good way to relax is just to let your legs come out straight. And then we'll just do it for the second time again. Pulling these ankles towards you, elbows pushing down on the knees. All right, so the adductors are technically part of the hamstring group, so we are still working on the back of the leg. The next ones we're going to do are into the glutes. So we're still working on the back of the body. We're still going to be sat down on the floor. So you can see how easy all of this would be to do when you're watching TV. You know, make your downtime useful for your running. Okay, so the next one, this one is for the glutes. So we're going to be sitting on the floor. One leg crosses over the other. So this is my left leg has crossed over my right leg. Okay. Opposite arm comes over, elbow reaches the back of the knee, and then I'm going to walk round with the back of, so that the other hand is almost behind me. I'm twisted almost 180 degrees. and I'm pulling this knee towards me, okay? So I can feel the stretch in my glute. So let's just show you again. So leg goes over, opposite arm comes to grab that knee, and then this hand goes round to the back and you look back at it so that you're pulling this knee towards your chest and you're feeling the stretch in that glute. Again, deep breaths into these stretches, really important. Okay, gently out of it. And then the next one, other leg goes straight, left leg goes over, hug that knee towards you with the opposite arm, and the same side arm goes round to the back, you look backwards, and see all my elephants by the TV. Still holding each of these for about 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, so back to the first side. Holding for 20 to 30 seconds. Deep breaths. And to the second side again. Okay, so that is the back of the legs done. Now we're going to go onto the front of the legs before moving into the torso and upper body. So the first part of the front of the legs is the tibialis anterior. So this is the front of the shin. This is where we get shin splints. And it's something that most people forget to stretch. There is actually quite a big muscle there on me. A lot of people don't even notice there is a muscle there, but mine's quite developed, not just from running, but from rowing many years ago. So the way we stretch this out, so I'm going to show you where I lose half of my body, is laces down. So I'm not wearing any shoes, but shoelaces down. I'm just going to kneel forward. Okay, then you sit back. Already can feel a stretch there, but if you can't, or if you want to deepen it, you walk yourself backwards, and then you're feeling that stretch in the front of the shin. Try to relax the ankles as you're doing this stretch. Okay, if you do have, if it is inflamed because it's too much, then don't do the lean back. Even take some weight off so that you can just feel a bit of a stretch without it being too painful and sore. Okay. All right. The next one for the front of the body is the quad stretch. And again, this can be done standing up, but it's much more effective lying down because you're not dealing with balance. So all you do is bring your heel towards your bum and use your arm to hold it close to your bum, close to your body. To make it more effective, you push your heel into the, your hip into the floor. And you're holding for 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, switching sides now. Ow, that was the coffee table. So pushing the hip into the floor, making sure there's a stretch in the quadriceps. Okay, back to your initial side. So I always do the left leg first for some reason. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, one thing I should have mentioned in this video is that as you are doing the stretches, it's really important just to pay attention to if there are any specific points of tightness, because when we go on to use the foam roller and the lacrosse ball, those are the points we're going to focus in on. Now, I'm actually feeling pretty good at the moment, so I don't have any specific points that I feel I need to address, but I'll show you as if I do, so that you know what we do with those tools. So back to the second side. Now, the next stretch we'll be doing is the hip flexors, and really the hip flexors and quadriceps, they're all part of the same muscle group. So quadriceps tend to be a bit more knee oriented, hip flexors more hip oriented. So if you are feeling that the quadriceps aren't particularly tight, you might find that your hip flexors are, and vice versa. So if you tend to be more of a knee issues kind of person, it's probably quad related. If you tend to be more of a hip issues kind of person, it's probably hip flexor related. Okay, so the way we do this, and I have to really go back so you can see, is we make 90 degrees with each leg. On the back foot, you see my laces have gone down. I'm actually stretching the back leg, so this is going to be really difficult to see. I'm going to switch over actually so you can see when I'm explaining it. So it's the back leg that you're going to stretch, and you're going to feel the stretch in this area here. Okay, now a lot of people do this stretch and they go like this. And what's happened with this is that it's not particularly lengthened. So what I want you to do in order to get a stretch more is actually, rather than leaning your whole body forwards like that, knee upright, and instead you're going to push your hip forward. You see my upper body's gone back, and actually this hand is going to go straight up in the air. Now you can't see it in the camera, but that's what I'm doing. And then I feel the stretch all the way to the front of the thigh, over the hip, and the front of the body. So you hold that for about 20 to 30 seconds. Okay, gently out of it, and then we're going to switch sides. Laces down, 90 degrees, pushing that back hip forward, and the arm on the same side goes up. You're really feeling the stretch, and you can even deepen it by leaning towards the midline of the body with that hand that's outstretched, as you'll feel that in the hip flexors. Okay, and relax. All right, we're going to do those both again. And what I'm starting to feel now, because I had been for a run earlier, thought I'd make it authentic, is I'm starting to feel a lot more relaxed in my legs, and they're starting to feel a lot more recovered. So I'm no longer feeling that sort of tired leg feeling and that general tightness that you get when you run regularly. And actually, I get that tightness from not running. So when I haven't run for a few days, but I've done a lot of desk work, I get that tightness. So this is a good practice, even if you're not currently active and you're running. Okay, did that one a bit too quick, but never mind. All right, so we're going to get into the torso now. So we've done the front of the legs. So we did the tibialis anterior, tibialis anterior, we did the quadriceps, we did the hip flexors. We're going to go back to the back of the body. And now we're going to do a lower back stretch. And this is a really nice one, it's a very relaxing one. Basically, you lie down, hold your knees into you, and just lift your head up, just gently rocking from side to side. More of a massage than a stretch, this one. You can, if you want to keep your head down, you can do. A little less than the stretch, but still very relaxing. I tend to find when I run, my lower back does start to get quite sore because I have an anterior pelvic tilt. And so it's really important for me to do this back mobility as well as all the stretching of the legs. It's really important for me to get regular massage of that lower back as well. Okay. So next, we're going to do some spinal mobility. Let me move over. So on all fours, and you're going to stretch your spine first by lowering the abdominals, lifting the head up. So this is the happy cat. And then you're going to arch your back, pushing into the floor. Notice that my arms have stayed straight throughout. A lot of people do this and they start doing press ups. I have no idea why. Arms stay straight without. Happy cat. And then you slowly go into the angry cat. So it's full pelvic tilt, spinal mobility. And you can do this as often as you want, actually. If you stay doing this for 3 or 4 minutes, it's really going to affect your spinal health. So well worth it. I'm just going to do 3 more. Nice deep breaths in this one. Okay, then you take it back to neutral, which is about there. And from here, you're going to do a shoulder stretch. The way we do this is you can have one hand that's on the floor. I'm going to stretch this shoulder with this hand. So what I do is thread the needle through, get a bit of a spinal twist, and as far as your reach can go, you then put your hand on the floor and lean back to get a stretch in the upper. Okay, and we're going to do the same on the other side. Okay, we're going to come to sitting to do more of a shoulder stretch. So this one, bring one hand across and you're going to pull it into a stretch, either holding onto the wrist or the upper arm. I find I get much more leverage by holding onto the wrist. And holding for 15 to 20 seconds on these upper body ones. Okay, and then onto the other side. Okay, stretchy shoulders. Okay, the next one is the triceps. So I'm going to get back even further so you can see. I'm going to take this hand and imagine you put it straight up and then point down to the floor behind you. And then take the other hand and push down on that elbow. You should feel a stretch in that tricep. Okay, same on the other side. So take that hand straight up in the air, then point down the center, be back. Then with the other hand, pushing it down so that you get a stretch in that tricep. Okay, so now we've done pretty much the full body stretch as it pertains to running. I'm going to start using these tools. Okay, so I'm going to follow the order that we stretched in. So the first thing I want to deal with is the calves. So I'm going to use both tools for this. First off, the foam roller. This will deal with quite superficial calf issues. I'm going to slightly angle my pose so you can start to see what I'm doing at the back. But what we do when we're using the foam roller for the calves is one foot goes on just above the ankle, other leg goes over the top to add the weight, and then you're going to push through the ground to lift your weight off the floor so that it all goes through the foam roller, and then you're going to slowly roll. And if you find any points of tension, just hold on to those and breathe deeply through them. Now you might find this is quite challenging for your arms, so you might need to just lower yourself down and pick up again. Always remember the purpose. Right now the purpose here is calf mobility and not brute strength in my arms. So if my arms get tired, just relax down, shake them off, and you can get back to the calf. There's no need to hurt your wrists or your shoulders by doing foam rolling. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so slowly forward. Okay, so now I've got to knee level. I'm just going to do the same on the same leg. I'm just going to roll downwards. So we're fine going up, but is there anything on the way back that I maybe missed because I went over it too quickly? And everything I'm feeling right now is in the lower half of my quad, of my calf. So from here to here, and this point is actually a really, really complicated point in terms of anatomy, because this is where you've got the soleus coming in underneath the gastrocnemius. There are lots of points of attachment there, and that's where it tends to get really sore. And so I actually am going to focus in on it with this. So I'm going to roll the leg up so you can see what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do on that point is I'm going to get the ball under there, and then, like I've done with the foam roller, crossing one leg over the other. I actually don't need to do a lot to feel it, so I'm not actually able to lift my bum off the floor. It's too painful, but there's a lot of pressure going through that ball. So I've put my weight through so that it's going through that ball. And now I'm going to swivel my foot around, and that is going to act as a release where it's gotten a bit tight and knotty in there. Okay, so I'm trying to put weight through while swiveling the ankle around. It's really complicated. You'll notice that as I did that, I relaxed, and so I'm still actually getting some effect from swiveling it around, but it's not quite as effective. So I'm just going to move it slightly because I can feel, oh, there it is. That is a really nasty point. So again, rolling the ankle round and using that ball as a direct trigger for that trigger point. Now you don't want to do any of this for too long because you don't want to create bruising. You just want to do just enough to give it a bit of a release. It's unlikely to end up perfect after one session, but if you do this regularly enough, you'll find that you'll start to release really quickly. Okay. Oh yeah, that's a good one. So I'm just gonna, this will be the last part on this leg. And then as well as swiveling around, you can just flex, so you can go backwards and forwards. Okay, great. So that is that left calf really mobilized. And I'm feeling it now. It just feels, loose. Whereas compare it to this one, I mean, you can't really see anything, but compare it to this one feels like nice and loose. It feels like a piece of, no, it sounds really weird, but it feels like a piece of fresh meat, you know, when you get it from the supermarket before you've cooked it. whereas this one feels like one you've cooked. So the blood flows back, which is I'm really happy about there. Now I also use this ball for my foot, so I tend to stand up, but you're just using it in the arch, and any points that are sore you can focus in on. Again, because I've done that work on the calf, it's actually released a lot of what I usually get in that foot, which is good. So let's go on for the other side. So remember, you're starting just above the ankle, crossing the leg over. You're going to roll downwards, down, down, down. Any points of tightness, you just hold on. Or if you need to relax your arms, you lower down. Whew. Right, found a piece there. Now, one way of really working it is when you get to those points of tightness, is to try and use the muscles. So in this case, it's about flexing and pointing the toes, which is really hard to do. And you've got something on the muscle, but it will help to engage that trigger point. Okay. Whew, slowly down. Arms got tired. Continuing down to the knee. Now I'm noticing on this side that most of the tightness that I'm feeling in the roller is towards the outside of the calf, which suggests to me there's some weakness in the outside of this hip. So I would imagine that this soreness is going to continue all the way up the leg on the outside. Okay, so now start at the knee and come back down. Slowly, slowly. Any points of tightness? Sorry, my wrists have had enough. Any points of tightness, and you hold on. Oh, there it is. So same point on this side, so the same point I'm going to focus in with that little ball. Okay, so that same point where all of that anatomy is going on, just below the belly of the calf, just there. Okay, so I am putting weight through it. You can just see the change in shape of my clothing because the weight's going through it. Oh, moving the foot around as much as possible, which isn't very much, to work through those knots. Oh. Yeah. So this one is particularly bad. So what I'm going to do is just make a note, and when I do my sort of 10 minutes each day, I'll just spend a couple of minutes on the right calf, just trying with this ball just to mobilize it. That's all I'm going to do. Nothing major. I'm not going to change the way I run or train. It's just a bit of tightness. It's not affecting my running yet, so I don't need to do any more than manage it. And this is why foam rolling, massage, and stretching is so important, because you can identify these little niggles before they turn into injuries. So imagine if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't know that that's getting tight. I wouldn't know that I need to do some strengthening on the glute medius, and I would probably get some sort of injury when I up the mileage into February. Okay. All right, so we've done the calves. That definitely needs a bit more time, but in the interest of getting this video done, we'll move on. So the next is the hamstrings, and as a relatively light woman, I really struggle to get much of an effect with a foam roller on my hamstrings because they're such powerful muscles that I just can't get the pressure. But nonetheless, I'll show you how to do it. If there's something superficial, then it tends to have an effect. But if it's deep down, as it does tend to be in my hamstrings, I need the ball, or I need a human to do it for me. Okay, so this one is just the same as in the calves. So you're on the hamstrings, and slowly, 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 any points of tightness, and then you stop and breathe. But as I said in my intro, this feels like it's nothing pretty much because I can't get enough weight through to make it effective. So let's do the same on the other side, crossing over. Okay, this one I'm feeling a bit more, which is good, but it seems that as I go over it, it releases it, which is really nice. So even though I don't feel loads, it's still worth doing because it still had an effect. It's just not as effective as that in those calves where I pretty much feel every knobble on the foam roller doing something to the tightness in my calves. So I'll just do this again. On that side. And yep, there we go. So now I'm going to go into the glutes. So this isn't just a case of simply sitting on it, although, but it's your starting point. But do you remember when we did that glute stretch? What we're going to do to engage the glute into the roller is I'm sitting on the roller just to get me started. My hands are behind me. I'm going to do it with this leg. So we're going to be rolling this glute. Cross it across your knee on the other side. Sort of make it 90 degrees. Okay, and then you're going to lean slightly towards that side so that you're getting the glutes in there. And then you do gentle roll, just as you have done on the calves and hamstrings, into the glutes. You find any points of tightness, then you stop and hold. Okay, I'm pretty good in there, but I can feel the tightness is coming down from my back, which I'm going to use this ball for. Just go onto the other side. So turning slightly towards it and gentle roll. This one's a bit tighter. Okay, so onto the floor. Next one is the back, which we're going to do with this ball. And literally, there are some little dimples in your back, which are where it's called the sacroiliac joint. You don't need to know what it's called, but find those dimples, put the ball in one of them, and then lie down, and you'll understand what I mean. All you need to do really is lie in that spot. And I find because it's all about your hip action, just start moving your leg around and you'll find the points where it's most needed. Okay, I'm just moving slightly onto the side. So I'm almost following the line of the hip. So it's going to be around there. Okay, and then the dimple on the other side is going to get it too. So sacral, that's really tight. All right, so you're lying on it first, and just moving the leg around. So I can tell that I needed to move that down slightly because there's some really tight muscles in there. And all I'm going to do actually for a moment is just lie on it and breathe. Because this in itself is having an effect. I can feel it. Okay, now I'm just going to slightly roll sideways. Oh, that's really, really painful. So with this one in particular, because it's so painful, I've got to be really careful I don't overdo it and go into bruising. So I'm going to do it gently, but then I'm going to manage it in other ways. So one way is this is going to be a point that I might put some deep heat on for a few nights. Also, nice warm bath. All nice ways of managing it. And then if it's still like this in a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, I'll go and see someone because this is definitely a tightness that I can't run a marathon with. Another easy management technique is, of course, applying some rock tape, but that's not going to go very well with a deep heat. So the first thing I'm going to do is do some deep heat, and then I'll apply rock tape in advance of any big runs that might aggravate this otherwise. Okay, well, so that's the back done. Now, that one in particular, I find quite painful. So I actually do a little back stretch again to relax myself. So there we go. All right. And now we're just going to foam roll the quads. So this one, front of the leg, front of the thigh. And you can do these both together. What I like to do is I get the foam roller right against my knees and then go over into a plank. And then I get it set up so it's just at the top of the knee. Now this is usually the point for me that is the tightest. And then I'm just going to roll slowly, any points of tightness, hold on to them. Now I'm doing this with both legs because I find my quads are so tight that I can get enough pressure, but you can increase the pressure by taking one leg off. So what you'd do is you'd do it onto one side, so the other leg is just resting on the floor, and the one that you're working on has all the weight going through it. For me, this is too much because I feel it so well with the two together that putting just one at a time is just too much. It's too painful, not worth it because I'm never going to do it. So I'll do the two together. And what we can do is that point of tightness that's just above the knee. Again, it's a complicated piece of anatomy. It's similar to that part in the calf. So that point just there, that's where we do some flexing. So that will work through that trigger point. So I do this bit one leg at a time just to focus in on it. And then try and roll with that leg bent as well. Okay, straighten it, come back. And then we're going to do the same again on the other side. Okay, so then what we can do is similar to on the calf is we can use this ball. Now I know that mine are just so tight this is going to be really, really painful, but the point is, let's see if I can roll these up enough so you can see. Quite tight, so it might be a bit of a challenge here. I'm not going to be able to get quite there, but it's basically, it's probably about a ball width away. You want to get the center of the ball. Basically all the muscles come up from the knee and they go around in various directions, and it's that point where the three of them are most engaged. You might be able to find it with your thumbs if you press in. It's quite deep down that you're going to need to go. Essentially, find that position, lie on your front, get the ball in, and then try and put some weight through as you bend and flex the knee. See, I can do that, and I realise that it needs to be a little bit closer down. Just getting intuitive with these things, really. Oh. So you can see there where I'm actually really struggling to bend it. And that's because it's hit a snag. So where the ball's pressing in, there's a real snag in that muscle. It's trying to work through. That's why I can't do the full range of motion here. But keep on trying, because that's going to be what's working through it. Okay, so I'll just do the same on the other side. That is another point that I'm going to make a note of to add to my daily stretching sessions. I'll just do that point on the other side. So this one is as bad. Okay, so that is, let me get the camera set up again so you can see me. Right, so that is my Saturday night stretch and roll. What's happened to the light? It was sunny when I started, because it's not actually Saturday night, it's Monday afternoon. I just put a light on so I can say goodbye. Okay, that's better. Right, so I really hope you have enjoyed that stretch and roll and that you feel much better in yourself. I certainly do, having gone through it, and this is why it's so important to get it into your routine. So as I mentioned at the start of this video, I would do it on a Saturday night ahead of the long run, and then on a Sunday night after the long run. So if you can make sure that you do this to sandwich your long run, so to prepare you for the highest volume training session that you have each week, then it's going to make a huge effect to your consistency in your training, because you're not going to get injured quite so often, because you're going to identify those points of tightness that eventually lead to injuries. If you have any questions about anything in this video, then make sure that you post them in the comments below, or pop them on the blog that's associated with this video. And I really look forward to hearing how you get on. So make sure you let me know. Have a wonderful week and enjoy your stretching. Bye.